For the first time ever, I am thrilled to say we have an official sponsor for the Dirt Talk podcast, and that's Ariat. I've worn Ariat boots on every job site I've visited over the years, traveling in them across 5 continents. More importantly, I have yet to find a single project where working folks, unlike me, are not wearing Ariat boots and workwear in every condition imaginable. And there's really good reason for that, and that's because it's phenomenal stuff. And the more I've learned about Ariat and the company, the more I've loved their brand. So with this, Ariat is offering any Dirt Talk listener 10% off their next Ariat order at ariat.com/dirttalk. That's 10% off boots, jeans, and workwear at ariat.com/dirttalk or at the link in this episode's description. With that, let's get to the show. A common talking point, we need more women in construction, in mining.
100%.
Okay, then what are you doing from a childcare standpoint? Or so they have to work the same hours, 80 hours a week, weekends,
Right.
nights? Do you understand that they're the ones typically doing the caretaking?
Yeah.
On average, they're doing almost all the caretaking in the United States of the children and the elderly. So then, how does the math work? What do you do there? Have you seen how expensive daycare is nowadays?
No,
You haven't, because your kids are 30 or whatever it is. But it's like, what are we doing to accommodate more women in the industry? Well, we're not doing anything.
We're not doing
Oh, okay.
Oh, by the way, nothing. No, we're doing nothing.
Well, then what do you expect?
Yeah. And a lot of those are single moms that are absolute savages that are trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of single dads, on that point. It's not just single moms out there. It's single dads who have kids who are trying to figure it out, and mom's not in the mix for whatever reason, and they still have to make a living for their kids. Well, what are we doing for them? And this is something I say almost at every time that I'm asked to publicly speak. Look, one of my biggest pet peeves is we are asking these people to spend more of their lives with us, making our dreams come true, building our businesses, building our legacies. What are we doing for them? Well, we're paying them. Well, let me tell you something. When they're spending more of their life, their quality of life is restricted just because they're fulfilling your dream.
Yeah.
It is time in America, at the very least, that we are the ones that are innovating this and pushing this initiative forward and actually taking care of people in such a way that going, hey, you know what? I understand about my dreams, but that's linear thinking. What am I doing to help you build a legacy?
Well, I can get paid in a lot of places nowadays too. I've got a lot of options as an individual.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I look at it as from an employment standpoint, it's my, as an employer, it's my responsibility to make sure they know that this is in their best interest beyond dollars and cents. And if I'm not doing that and they're leaving, it's my fault.
You're 100%.
I'm in charge of my workforce.
Right.
My workforce, my responsibility.
Right.
But it's been the complete opposite. As long as me, employer, gives you, employee, a paycheck every Friday, every other Friday, whatever it is, for the next 30 years, 40 years, you'll do whatever I need you to do. Right. That was how things worked.
Right.
In the 1900s.
Sure.
But now it's just not how the world goes around.
And with the recruiting world as hot and heavy as they are and have been since you and I have gotten to know each other, and you and I especially, it's kind of weird, like when you and I first met in a mountain range in the middle, up on the side of a mountain years ago, that during that time sparked.
It was Cupertino.
Cupertino,
yeah.
Diablo Mountain Range. I like saying that.
Yeah.
The Diablo Mountain.
Yeah.
But there was a spark in the recruiting business in the blue collar world. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, things get really muddy now because I, as a blue collar guy, I might even like where I'm working, but I can get $50 more a week. And at that time, that's what it was. That was one of the selling points. And this place is great. And you can come here and work for $50 more. Yeah. Or I can have so many options and I can get hooked in with a recruiter and literally bounce my way through my experience. Uh-huh. So what are you doing for me to make me want to stay?
Yeah.
Are you investing in me? As a young man, for me, that's all I needed. I was so wild and unruly. I needed somebody to go, I see greatness in you. And I want to enhance that and draw it out. Mm. And we're very afraid to do that in the trades because I heard a guy say this one time. He said, I invested in one guy And he was like a son to me.
Then
he left.
Yeah.
I was like, well then, and he even said, so I wasted all that. It's like 2 years of mentoring this kid. It broke my heart. And I said, so those 2 years were wasted. He said, absolutely. And I said, no, they weren't. Because what you did was you just put a guy in the skilled trades out there who can do the same thing for somebody else. And we have enough that people say they're skilled trades. And when it shows up and they're doing the job, it's not necessarily what we hoped for.
Not always, no.
Right. Yeah. And mentoring needs to be something that we're doing because it's the right thing to do, irregardless of the feedback. But as a kid, for me, if I early in the trades, if someone would have invested in me in that way, man, I'm going to tell you something. I'm a ride or die guy. I want to ride for the brand. And you've seen me do that, with other companies.
Yeah,
just totally sell myself out for the brand because I know that's what's important for not for me, but for the whole. And if we can get behind that and stop looking so linearly, boy, we could really make a difference. Mm-hmm. We can make a difference for our communities. We can make a difference for our teams. We are here more than we are doing fishing, or doing whatever it is that you love to do, whatever that thing is. And let's take that time from entry level D3, the guy who's day 3, from the guy who's day, year 30.
Yeah.
Let's start investing in each other, look at each other's team and stop getting drowned out by, well, the president isn't making the right decisions. Let's make the right decisions right here in the middle where we're at. And we can make a mass effect on what we're doing and create such an amazing space. I love that Spartan-esque kind of Navy SEAL sort of mentality. You've been around Jocko. These are hollowed walls. I'm a huge, huge appreciator of his work. And one of those things is just drawing us together and realizing that you play an amazing role in what we do. I play an amazing role in what we do. Let's link shields and let's enhance each other instead of just looking at what is going on right here.
And I think people, a lot of people have been taken advantage as individuals by companies, which then gives them a really jaded perspective. And then a lot of companies have been taken advantage by individuals, which gives them a jaded perspective. But if me as an individual, I'm doing what I should be doing at the employer of my choice, even if I'm getting screwed, am I just going to say, well, they're screwing me, so I'm going to screw them? That's I'm the first one to get screwed in that equation.
Yeah.
I'm setting myself back. I should still be saying, okay, maybe I'm getting screwed. Let me figure out what I can do today, how I can help those around me today.
Right.
Develop the skills here. I'm here for a reason. Let me develop the skills. And when the time comes, I can go somewhere else. And these skills are going to be valuable to maybe a great company that does appreciate me, that isn't screwing me.
Right.
But until I make myself worthwhile and worth investing in, that's I think people, even from like a mentorship thing, they want like someone to come down from the clouds and just like scoop them up. Oh, you have so much potential. Come on down, Jimmy. Let's go. Let's teach you how everything you. That's not how it works, man.
Here's the keys to the whole world right here, buddy.
It doesn't work that way. I think people invest in people that want to be invested in.
Right. And they're usually the last guy you'd pick in the line. Because he's willing and he's hungry and he shows up and he's taking trash out and he's doing this and he's doing that. And you're like, that's the guy I want to invest in. And everyone looks at him and goes, yeah, but he's not a jock. He's not, he's not a hillbilly. He's not, cool. He's not tradey. He doesn't have the beard and no, he might be a 90-pound welt, but look at him. He's working his butt off and he's responsible. That's the guy I want.
Yeah.
And I think just it's funny that you say it that way because I think people do expect it. I think I did at one time, but what I realized is learning what not to do is half the battle. And that's like going to college. That is a leadership 101. If you're upset about where you are right now, I want you to look at it differently because I know what it's like to go to work and just go, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do another day.
Mm-hmm.
I got a family. I got mouths to feed. I can do another day. I know I did 90 hours last week. I know I haven't seen him for 3 weeks. I can do another day. I can do that. I know, guys, I know what that's like. But when you look at it at the perspective of everything I'm learning that burns me, I'm not doing to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that to somebody else. And every time you see something that you're like, okay, that's wrong, don't do that. That's half the battle. You just learned. It isn't always going to be that guy going, pull this lever. Pull that lever. And when this happens, this is what you do. It's not going to always work that way. And it never has. It literally never has.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more examples of what not to do too.
Yes.
There's some really good examples out there.
You and I have firsthand experience
of what not to do.
Of what not to do.
Yeah. It's
and I've been the guy of what not to do.
100%. Oh yeah.
I've been that guy of what not to say, what not to do, when not to be classy. Yeah. I've been the when not to be classy guy.
Yeah, you're further down the path than I am. How much have you changed? Because I feel like even when I first met you 5-6 years ago, pretty different. I feel like you're the same core. Yeah, you're the same like core human being.
Yeah.
But you've done some learning for sure.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that. In a very positive way.
Yeah. So my wife's in the room with me today, and so I have to not lie. I have to tell the truth, man. I was very rough and rowdy, and gosh, man, I made some mistakes, man. And I based a lot of my thinking off of how tough I was. You know, I'm walking with the cane now, as you see, and that's real humbling. Something hit me just a couple years ago that has created a lot of disability in my life. And I grew up fighting. I grew up physically fighting. I grew up in martial arts and fighting there and being very successful. Met my wife at a second United States amateur kickboxer wedding. That's an awesome story. But met her at my wedding. She was actually my bridesmaid. And, so he and I would fight all the time. And I always thought that was the basis of who I was, and that I was always right about things and the whole world was wrong around me. And even when you met me, I think that there was some things that I looked at very linearly. And this process of helping other people and getting in the blood, the guts with people in their personal lives, presidents and high functioning guys who are like, look, I've made a lot of money, but my life is a mess, has really humbled me greatly. And I've come to this place, and I thank the good Lord for it, that I look at people and their problems much differently. I don't judge people as like I used to. And now I have a lot more grace and compassion for both myself and other people for when they fail, because I realize that people, when they fail, a lot of times it's not an intentional thing. If you at your age, and when you started, you broke things, you did things, and you look back and you're like, I kind of wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I hadn't done that. Well, that's okay. That's a part of growing. But what mastery of life is when you own that and you decide, you know what, I'm looking at myself with a clear lens, and I don't always like what I see.
Yeah.
And that's where I've had to be several times in my own life. And the more that I do that, I find that the mass effect of Bowman Legacies in our business has just exploded in a lot of ways because of that ability to be able to go, hey, look, we're all in this. I said this to you earlier. We're all in the same boat. Turn around. That's me. Get your oar in the water. We got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, it's taken a lot of personal growth to walk with somebody through the darkest points of their life. And I'm happier now than I've ever been in my whole life.
Yeah, I can. And I can tell, which is really, really, really exciting.
Yeah.
I think like along those lines, what happened, what helped me really, I think, repair fundamentally my relationship with my mother was the realization that she's done her best.
Yeah. Yeah.
and which was so helpful, because it's like, okay, I can sit here and I can wield all of these bad things as resentment or whatever it is. I like long list, but I feel like that's every child, every parent.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what it was, but you just one day you're like, wait a minute, she did her absolute best.
Yeah.
So who am I to go sit here and judge her for that? Like, I don't have that right. And it just made it just made so much more sense. I'm like, she's a human being. She's got her own issues, her own struggles. She hasn't always made the right decisions. I haven't always made the right decisions. I won't always make the right decisions.
Right.
We're in this together. Imagine that. Go figure.
Go figure. I was talking to a key leader in a business the other day, and one of the things that he was just, he's yelling on the phone. Oh, I can't believe this guy did that. And I can't believe he said this. And I can't believe he said that. And I was like, well, let's map out what he said. Let's map out the action. And what we realized was that this guy was really scared of losing his job. He felt pushed in a corner and he acted out. Well, a lot of people who aren't really trying to, and I'm guilty of it too. I've flown a few birds in traffic. And so, I know what that's like. And I said, this guy, you cornered him. And then because you cornered him, he felt like his flight or fight was triggered.
Yeah.
And that's why I said the things. He didn't do it because he's a bad person. He did it because you got to accept where you pushed him to that place of no return. And he felt like, this is all I got. This is my only choice to make right now. And I said, what you have to understand is that our actions have consequences to what we do in a much grander scale. Okay, yeah, I go bump over the liquor store. The cops get me consequences. But it's much deeper than that. The human psyche, the human mind, and understanding how to lead people and how to guide people. First, you must understand yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, I feel like been a lot of my struggle is because I'm still in my 20s.
Yeah.
I've still got a lot of figuring out who I am to do.
Yeah.
But then you have this growing organization and influence.
Yeah, right.
In tandem with trying to figure out who you are as an individual.
Right.
And I think it's super cool and has made me take my development way more seriously than I would have otherwise. But it's also a lot of pressure.
Right.
Because I still know who I am as an individual. I'm still trying to figure out these very, very basic things, trying to find answers to these very basic questions.
Yes.
And so it's
only time can teach.
And that's another part of it. Yes. Yeah. There's just the time factor that is so perplexing, frustrating sometimes because it is just like I feel like for the first time in my life, I appreciate time. Which is another thing. It's like, go figure.
I'm on the other end of that, bub.
Well, yeah,
I'm looking down there and going, man, I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but now, like,
I don't have a lot of time.
I'm 29, but I feel like I've been able to live a lot of life, especially the past decade. I've crammed a lot into my 20s.
Yeah,
and so, but now, like, for the first time, I can see people and they do something like that's just completely irrational, and you can just say, like, they just need more time. They just don't know any better.
They don't know.
And so instead of, their character's flawed.
Yeah.
They don't know any better.
They don't know any better. They don't know any better. I remember sitting in a bar with a bunch of minors one time, and a guy was getting pretty rowdy and being pretty boisterous about how tough he was and how he was this or how he was that. And one of the guys sitting next to me, and he said, man, that guy, gosh, I'm so scared of him, or he's always so grouchy all the time. And I was like, there's a reason why that animal is the way he is. And I remember as a kid, I wasn't home much. So when we came home, I lived way out in the country, and we live in a really cool area where the glacial fill came and just kind of stopped. And so if you've been through Indiana and you've seen flatland, you have not seen Monroe County, Brown County, Owen County, Morgan County, Lawrence County, some beautiful areas. And if you're a motorcycle rider, I'll tell you it's some of the best riding in the world. But I spent a lot of times in the woods, and I spent a lot of times watching nature. And it gave me just such a divine understanding of that we are no different. We are no different, Aaron. Yeah. We are just a complicated animal that overcomplicates way too many things. But we all have the same motivations deep down. And so when someone acts out, it's part of that primal instinct. And they have to understand that something they feel is being taken from them. And they feel as though they have to act out primally. And I was one of those guys, and my wife can attest that the early years of our marriage was very rowdy. And I never hurt my wife because I didn't want to die. Wanted to wake up the next morning. Yeah. But we literally would solve problems by flipping each other with a towel. Like if I wanted to do something and she wanted to do, that was the decision maker. So we called us. We'd go get the kitchen towel. I'd whack her, she'd whack me, and we would do that until someone cried uncle. That's the way we made decisions in the early days, right? So it's very primal. And what I've come to understand is through understanding myself and my own weaknesses that people have those things. And then when we're on the job site and you got that guy who's the big bull and he's always acting out, there's a reason. And you can also motivate and get inside that guy's heart. And that's where we've got to get to. We have to understand that these individuals are broken pots. And we all leak. And we're all broken pots. We all leak. And so what we have to do is look at someone instead of hating them for their character or how they are, see where we can plug that. Now, I know at the end of the day, we still got a job to do. That's the hard part, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And there is no, even when I managed in other businesses, I never chewed anybody out or anything. It was just like, these are the rules. It's my job to uphold that rule. It's nothing against you that I have to write you up. But that's 4 write-ups and you're gone. So you're at the discretion of management now. And so that's the way I always felt about it. But, so at the end of the day, yeah. So a lot of people that are listening to this might think it's kind of wishy-washy because we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
We got stuff to do. But I'm telling you, as I have been able to work these things and these concepts into other organizations, we're watching teams flourish. We're watching people stay. We're watching people have a tribal nature and feeling over their organization and feel like I belong here. I remember talking the other day to a guy, having to get him to slow down. I was like, shout out to Adam. I won't say your last name, but Adam. And I said, Adam, you got to slow down. And I said, look, I understand that you finally come to this company and you feel like you've got a purpose. Like this, you've never been treated this way before. And so now you're ready to bury bodies.
Yeah.
Right. You're ready to whatever it takes. You're getting the tattoo soon, And I said, but you got to slow down to take care of yourself. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people just, be diehard because their business that's working for them as they're working for them, if that makes sense. It's an unbelievable phenomenon that I never really expected to see. And it's so refreshing too, because I tried to institute these concepts growing up, but I didn't have my head wrapped around them all the way like I do now. And to see it fold out, and it's a beautiful thing to see someone get teared up about the company they work for.
Yeah. And I think that's the future. If you look at any company doing really well in the industry right now, actually developing the workforce they need and recruiting the workforce they need and making a lot of money and growing, they're the ones that they're
innovating,
being very intentional about their workforce.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no question in my mind. And we could go sit here and just down the list. Like Herb spoke to our group yesterday. Listen to that guy talking, like, I don't need to hear anything else. Like I'd go to work for Herb. Dan Garcia, you hear him talk. Yeah, I'd work for that guy. There's these guys that and their organizations represent that.
Yes, 100%.
It's not talk.
And with Herb, it's when you're there and you feel the heartbeat of it. It's so different. It's so different because they are what they say. They even say that we are what we say are. We do what we say we do.
Yeah.
And to be in that room to hear those guys chant those things is unbelievable. And to be around them and be amongst them and to see how much they love each other, but still, they make fun of it's the same. None of that's changed. Sure. They're still cussing at each other. They're still calling each other the most awful things, And
they're pouring concrete, moving dirt.
They're doing their thing, but to see how they're tight and to see that culture unfold in front of you is a very beautiful thing. Midwest Mole is one that's just absolutely they've been doing it for a while, but I've been with those guys, and to see that closeness and to see that tightness amongst guys who are very different is just unbelievable. And to sit with Jason and talk with him about his vision and what he's seeing and how he's looking way, way down is it's inspiring, because I came up in a world where people would say, Michael, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I hired you from the neck down. All those statements were there. And I said those things. I have said those things in my management journey. I hired you from the neck down. I didn't hire you to think, just do as I'm telling you to do. And what I found is the more that you engage with your employees, the more that you empower them. And the more that you empower them, because you've engaged with them and know them, the more they innovate. You see, we think that the president must innovate. The executive staff has to innovate. No, innovation can come from the field. Yeah. Innovation comes from the dirt, and that's where it stays and has longevity. And that's what keeps you valid in markets. You look at businesses where everyone said, well, that can't be done, or that's not the way we do it. And then here's some guy who's never been in the industry in his life. He decides to do it in a different way, innovates, and now 30 years later, he's king.
Sure.
Because he was willing to look at the template and go, there's something not.
I don't know.
I don't know.
This is one of my core complaints with, I think the biggest innovation in safety right now is these hard hats with chin straps, like the rock climbing helmets. That just, in my opinion, just look completely absurd. My hard hat, one, has never fallen off. But they have all this data, and we're going to go spend, I mean, it's tens of millions, if not $100 million plus to outfit the industry with these hard hats, maybe even more. It's a giant sum of money. That's the big thing. That's the innovation.
Right.
And I'm all for it. Like, hey, if you think it's going to be safer, if it is safer, cool, totally get it. But it's like, we're going to go do this because we can quantify it. We're spending this amount of money. We're investing in safety. We're very safe, safe. But we're not going to talk about all of the people killing themselves. We're not going to talk about that we're the number one by a mile for overdose deaths by industry in the United States. We're not going to talk about that kind of stuff. If you live with
these guys, dude, it's right in front of you. It's in your face.
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about, if you look on a job site, how unhealthy everybody looks. We're not going to talk about that. We can't do anything about that.
No.
But the hard hats, there we go. That's it. And I struggle with it because and this is like Bob Chapman's core message. Hey, if you truly care for these people as people, you end up with a better safety record. You end up with more efficiency. You end up being more profitable.
Yeah.
They end up making more money. It all works.
Yeah.
But it's so different from the hard charge mentality that is just suck it up, get it done. And I think it's I think it's almost viewed as like two different sides of the coin. You either care or you just get it done, but it's actually all the same. It's all the same thing. I think that's why
at the end of the day, because it all gets lost. We make these pie crust promises to people like the hard hats or the dollar raise you had mentioned earlier, and it's easily made, easily broken.
It did not solve their problem.
No.
Just for the record.
Of course it did.
The dollar raise didn't work.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called placebo. So at Bowman Legacies, we have several different cultures that we diagnose for companies, and one of those is placebo culture. The hard hat thing, that's a placebo. And that's the way for hard hat companies to really push this new hard hat. Well, that's cheaper for them to build. And my life's been saved by a 360 hard hat. Okay.
Yeah.
And my life was saved by one, and because of the way it was built, it glanced something that didn't even so much as hit my shoulder. I was drilling on an 84-foot ledge, and I'll never forget, the wind's blowing sideways and the steel went wonky. I was standing outside of it. So it's a drill tech, and I'm standing outside running the panel, and all of a sudden the steel went wonky, and I was like, what? And I looked up, and the head had come loose. So it's like 30-foot mass. The head came loose. And this bolt, dude, it's like 2 inches around the head of it came down, and it hit my hard hat.
Wow.
And I still have the hard hat. It was a 3M hard hat. And you actually took me a picture of me in this hard hat. And it slid off, and it didn't even hit my shoulder. So one thing's for sure, that thing would have buried itself in my skull, number one. Number two, if I didn't have that 360 hard hat, it would have missed. It would have hit my head, maybe glanced off, and it would have buried itself in my shoulder. So either way, I'd have got nailed. And so that's my beef with that. We put out these cultures, and we have placebo culture, right? That means if I give you the dollar, I feed you. But then the problem with is now I have to give you a little bit more next time, whatever that is. That's why I have a big beef with these safety incentives. I'm going to incentivize you for doing something you're supposed to do anyway by trying to keep yourself and your brother and your sister out there safe.
Yeah. Well, that's also one of my core complaints with safety in general. It's like my safety is my responsibility. Like, 100%. Shouldn't it start with me? Like, why is it top down? And then I start to resent these rules because it's just being forced down my throat.
Right.
And it's clearly from compliance driven. insurance driven, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But then sold as no, it's about you. You're like, no, it doesn't at all feel that way. And then now I'm being resentful of rules that are probably pretty good rules. Like do have a lot of merit.
100%.
People have died in this position that I should be on board with, but it's not. It's the messaging. I get caught up in that all the time. Like, why am I so pissed off about this right now? And it's like, because they're just...
And the poor safety guy shows up and she's just trying to do their job, you know, and everyone hates them.
Yeah.
It's like, no, don't hate the guy, you know, especially if they're not the, you know, safety Nazi, because we have a big thing about that. And I mentor some safety people that are killing it right now because of that ownership and being more of a servant. What we like to do is we like to go, okay, I'm the boss of whatever this section is, and you will comply.
Yeah.
And now that you will comply, look, we're America. We were built on a rebellion.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're rebels.
Yeah.
Look at the 80s and hard rock. It was all about being a rebel. Mm-hmm. You know, it was all about doing something. Look at any kind of fashion statement that kids make throughout the years, you know, whether it's the spandex or the goth look, it's all about being a rebel, being something else. So why would we think for a second that we're going to bring all these people in and I'm going to keep you compliant?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep you in your place. Or what I can do is absolutely 100% love you, guide you, mentor you, have some grace there. Obviously, there's got to be some, you're stealing from us, you got to go. You know, there's still got to be that. But why can't there also be, hey, look, this doesn't make sense for you not to want to invest in your own safety. I'll never forget looking at a mechanic up on a drill one day, and I was had become the safety guy at the company. And I could not get him to harness up while he was up there. And that's the law. Mm-hmm. I have to enforce the law. And I looked at him one day and I said, hey, brother, I said, he had a 17-year-old daughter. And I said, you have a 17-year-old daughter, don't you, bro? And I'm looking up at him. He goes, yeah. Well, in our industry, of course, he thinks I'm going to say something awful. Mm-hmm. And I said, you love her, right? And he's like, yeah. Can I have her number? Like if he had been off of that drill, dude, he'd have clobbered me. And I go, can I have her number? And he goes, what for? And I said, because I want to call her or at least text her and let her know that her dad doesn't love her enough. Because if he falls right now, we're in the position that he's in, his head's going to splatter. And I'm the one who's got to go talk to her and tell her dad's not coming home.
Yeah. And
he looked at me and he's like, hey, my harness is in the truck. You want to go get it for me? And he harnessed up, dude. I never had a problem with it because I put it in context. It wasn't, all right, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So now I'm writing you up. I checked the box. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the heartbeat of what you were saying before. It's all about checking the box.
Yeah.
It's about checking the box.
Well, and even just saying it's the law. It's like, and I okay.
There's towns that say the law is not to carry ice cream in your back pocket.
Yeah.
It's the law.
Yeah. Yeah. The safety thing, I think, is where it's most poignant. But that's where I think leadership really comes into play. Like if you're a safety manager with effective leadership and communication,
oh my gosh,
you're
going to
do
kill
a lot of good.
You're going to kill it. You come in there with the servant's heart and going, hey, I'm here to help. Yeah. I'll never forget, dude. We were working. It was late and we were working in, Cabin Rock, Illinois. So we're in Cabin Rock, Illinois, and we're up at the mine site. One of the prettiest places for sunsets on the face of the planet, right on the Ohio River.
Really?
Oh my gosh. The sunsets on the top of that ledge were just spectacular.
Wow.
And so we're up there with 3 or 4 drillers and we just were having problems and we couldn't get the skirt. For those of you drillers, shout out to you guys. I love you so much. I have such respect for your savage selves.
No one has respect for drillers otherwise.
No, yeah, dude.
No respect.
I'm there for you.
Yeah.
I'm there for you drillers, man. I respect, but we couldn't get things to work. And I remember just jumping in there and I was filthy. And I'm the safety guy. And one of the guys looked at me and goes, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? He goes, you can totally sit in your truck right now. He goes, it's like 110 degrees and it's 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
This is misery. The mosquitoes are bad. There's no wind up here. My mouth is just full of dirt. He goes, why are you doing this? And I said, because we're in this together, bro. And he goes, well, I've never seen a safety guy do that. And I said, well, I'm not that kind of safety guy. Mm-hmm. I'm in Michigan. We're up there, dude, a great mine site up there in Rogers City. Snow's blowing sideways.
That's a brutal place.
Dude, I've spent a lot of time up there, brother.
That's a brutal place.
I spent a lot of time up there. The only thing that made me upset about this guy saw bears, and I never got to see a bear. I was really ticked about that because in Cupertino, I did get to see the mythical mountain lion. Yeah. It's real. But Yeah, so I'm there and the hoe pulls up and this guy gets out and I'm looking around and on the trailer where we're fueling it up, there's 2 shovels. So I just grab a shovel and I start digging out tracks because that clay, man, I'm telling you, the next morning that hoe is not going to be able to move.
Yeah, if it freezes.
If it freezes, you're done. You're dead in the water and now it's 2 hours later and it sucks. If you think it sucks to dig out tracks, it's worse the next morning when it's, 20 below zero or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm digging out tracks and this guy gets over to me and he says, and executive staff, as you know, we all wore black hats and black hard hats. And he goes, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" Well, I know that guys are really particular about their equipment. And that's their baby. And I was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you." He goes, "Offend me? Hell." He's like, "Bro, keep going." He goes, "But why are you digging out tracks?" It's like, "Because it needs to be done." And I'm an exec at the time. And he says, "Black hats don't do that." And I said, "Well, this one does."
For whatever reason, I speak a lot now. Which has just been an odd thing to wrap my mind around.
Right.
And I've really tried to figure out, all right, I like we were saying earlier, I'm not an expert. I will never be an expert. I can't tell anybody how to build better or whatever this is, but what can I provide? I'm in a really unique position. I get to see more operations at a more intimate level around the world than most people nowadays.
Which
is pretty cool.
That's true.
It's awesome. It's incredible. Yeah. And so I've really tried to think, what are the best in class companies doing? What are the themes between these companies?
Right.
And I think one of the core themes is that the leaders, they are visible. They're present.
Yeah.
And there's various ways to presence. For you, it's shoveling tracks. It's not always that. Sometimes it's being there Friday night, late at night, when they're also there, or when it's cold, whatever it is. There's all different kinds of presence, and I feel like every leader has their own style.
There's balance to it all.
But there's no doubt at these top companies who there's no doubt that like the guy or whoever's leading the charge is in it with them.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Like Herb, great example.
100%.
I go out to a job site with him. He goes and starts trying to help lay pipe. And he was like kind of getting in the way, but the guys loved it because, and he's not nearly going to be, he's not going to be more efficient than the pipe layers. He knows that, but he also knows like, I need to set it. And he wants to do it. You can tell he's not doing it just for the sake of showing off. He can't help himself. He's just going to get in the, he's just going to try to help out. Dan Garcia, different. He's not helping. He's not grabbing a rake and raking asphalt, but he's talking to the guys. Hey, how are you? And he's speaking Spanish to the Spanish-speaking guys, English to the English-speaking guys. Here's my phone number. Hey, who are you? I don't think we've met. Hey, here's my cell phone number. Call me. But he's there. He's
engagement.
Jason Miller. Every time you call that guy, he's in the truck driving somewhere. Just lives in his truck.
He's just landed someplace or he's flying somewhere. Yes. I mean, this guy, he is insane, his schedule.
Yeah.
But 100%. And be with him and all of his guys, and Herb too, because I can attest to that. They all look at these two guys with admiration.
100%. Or I can just, Larry Ames is another guy, just absolute legend. Or we went down to see Reed Contracting in Alabama, and everybody talked about Mike Reed like he was some messiah, and so I'm there, young man, you're impressionable, you paint these pictures in your head that are oftentimes completely wrong,
right?
But you're like, who is this Mike Reed guy? And we go into this job trailer, their big project at the airport. There's just a bunch of guys standing around looking at the plans and talking. I'm like, okay,
you couldn't decipher which one Mike Reed was.
We walked out, and he's like, hey, did you meet Mike while we were in there? I was like, who's Mike? Like Mike Reed? I was like, that guy?
Yeah.
And it's just like, he's just another guy, but he's just out there. Like he's just in it. And that was his way of doing things.
Right.
And I think that's so important, especially from a workforce standpoint. I want to know who I'm working for.
Yeah.
I want to know who, and so not every leader needs to be a public speaker or anything like that.
No.
But I think
not every leader needs to be everything.
No, but they do need to be present.
Right.
I think they need to have a sense of presence, because I've worked for companies, you never see leadership.
Right.
And it is soulless. It is crushing almost as an individual. But I've worked for other companies, the leaders out there, even if you don't interact with them, just for the sake of visibility, you're like, oh, wow, that's the guy. That's who I'm working for.
Right.
Cool. He's out there. He's out here. It's hot. right on. Like I'm ready to go, man.
If you ever, okay, I'm sure you've seen the movie 300. For me, that film is absolute garbage.
Yes. Oh,
It's absolute garbage, especially if you're a history nut. For those of you who just love that movie, I appreciate you. Love you. God bless you. But if you're a history nut like I am, that story is much more rich than what we were given. But there's a great part in that where the Athenians, which is funny, is they all lived in the same place, but the Spartans felt like, well, we're not Greeks. We're Spartans, by God. Mm-hmm. And they get to this place where they're all meeting each other. And King Leonidas asks, what do you do for a living? I'm a potter. What do you? I'm a farmer. And he asks all these guys what they do for a living. And then he asks, Spartans, what is your profession? And they're like, we're warriors. Mm-hmm. We're Spartans. And I believe with all my heart, man, that businesses can achieve that kind of tribal understanding of who they are, forging ahead together in such a way that you guys are unmitigated savages.
Yeah.
And the way that you do that is by engaging with your people, showing that you care. I was so impressed with so many leaders that I've seen. We got to do Lead from the Middle, Petticoat and Schmidt. Was that this year, babe?
Ryan Schmidt's another
last
one.
Year. Dude,
another great
Ryan,
example. Yeah.
Everywhere he went, there wasn't a guy there who didn't know who he was, and he did. There's over 300 people in the room. Yeah. How is it that this guy knows who everybody is? Look, I'm massively ADHD and dyslexic. Okay, I have a hard time remembering. Like, I'll never forget your face, but remembering. He remembered the detail, like how's your wife, how's your kids, and to see him engage with his people was just great. And I'm telling you, that's the innovation. That's the problem with a lot of, and I'm telling you, these quote unquote smaller companies are coming after the juggernauts because the juggernauts have what I call, and what we call at Bowman Legacies, the anaconda syndrome. The head is so far from the tail, they don't know what's going on in the field. Yeah. They have no idea the horrible cultural things that are going on, the despicable things that are going on in the field of their organizations. And then not only that, the anaconda, which is so interesting about this animal, is that when they get so big, they have to go to the path of least resistance for them. They can't go over open land because their infrastructure of their body cannot handle their bulk. So they either have to stay in the water, which we're, Nat Geo, they're always in the water, or in the trees because they will suffocate to death because of their own heft. So now these companies, because they've gone a certain way and they've done things a certain way, they have built this trench that now they can't climb out of.
Yeah.
And culturally, organizationally, for them to make a shift, wow, it's hard to the point to where they're just, and you had said this before, we just keep going. We're just going to ignore it. We're just going to keep going because it's easier to talk about this than the fact that you're probably going to stroke out and have a heart attack on our site.
Yeah.
Because of the way you treat yourself.
It is quite interesting. I was even thinking that, the other day, an organization's not all that unsimilar to a human being. You have a cycle. You've got all this energy. You go build something and then you die. and that's where most companies go. They die. And there's a lot of these big operations that have no soul.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
It is cold, man.
And you've got to vie for someone's attention. You've got to make a home run every week. Guys, if that's you right now, I love you so much. I've been there. I know what that's like. You're trying to get somebody's attention. You're always trying to feel like if you don't make that home run, that your job's on the line. Yeah. That's a brutal place to be, man. That's cult culture, what we call cult culture. If you don't bleed, all of a sudden now, you're not culturally sound.
Well, and it's just so... Yeah, I just have such a problem with it being so transactional. It's just a job. It's nothing more than a job.
Right.
We hired somebody from a big organization of a certain kind, and it took like probably 2 years, but it was like watching him in really, really, really slow motion, but like Han Solo unfreeze from the whatever it was. I forget what it was called.
Somethingite.
Yeah, somethingite. But he was just frozen in this world that is so cold. But then watching this individual come back to life over the course of a few years was incredible to me. But
their demeanor changes.
It's like, whoa, we have breathed this whole new world into this individual. And he's always been this individual. But it just over time you get so abused. I think it's a form of abuse.
Yeah.
And then now you're in this state of abuse that this survival state, just to do it. And then you get out of that world. Wow. But it takes a long time to take people out of that world too. The more abused they are, you've got to really, because even I've realized too with our organization, people, they won't trust you.
No.
And they'll think it's like, this isn't actually how it is. I'm going to get screwed. And it's like, no.
Because they're always waiting for the other shoe to fall because it's happening.
Because they've been screwed a bunch. So it's like, I could take it personally. Oh, they don't trust us. They're not right here. It's like, no.
Yeah.
They don't trust us because they've been screwed a bunch. So, and if I were in their position, I wouldn't trust us either.
Right. Because proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see. And we grew up that way. We used to have a saying called put up or shut up. Put your hands up or shut your mouth. In other words, let me see you take action right now. It isn't about what you say. Perception versus reality here is two different things.
Yeah.
You can talk the talk and say that you're the best in the industry or you're culturally sound and you're doing all these great things. But then when you get into the inner workings of those organizations and you see, like you said, the soulless people, they're like gray and they're just tired. They're wore out. And man, I'm telling you, that's the most corrosive place to be. I've been there where everyone's boasting about things. And I'm just like, I have a very hard time living a lie. I've got more issues than Time Magazine, brother. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I'm a very flawed human being. I am not going to self-market in such a way that I'm going to tell everybody that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread because I don't believe it myself. Now, I believe I have greatness within me and I have an opportunity to live up to that. I believe you have greatness within you and you're striving to live up to that greatness every day and even figure out what that even means or what that means for you, right? Yeah. That's a big thing. But I'm here to tell you right here and right now, those companies, it doesn't take long for everyone to figure out who they are.
Well, and so that's the problem too with some of these recruiting campaigns is they paint some things to not be exactly as they are.
Right.
The people get there. Wait a minute. I had the wool pulled over my eyes.
Yes.
And then they're gone.
Right.
Why do these people? Why do we have such high turnover? I don't know. Maybe it's because you're painting a picture that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
Because, and especially with the real big companies, it's like, oh no, like you haven't been out to a job site. Like, oh no, you haven't actually been out to like a mine. Like you don't even know what goes on here, do you? Like you have no idea how this company makes money. Like it's actually the stuff in the back of that truck there. That's what makes the money. You don't make a dime.
We take that, make it small,
and
we put it in that thing over there. We call it a haul truck, and then that thing goes over with the small rocks, and it goes.
Yes, I'm being ridiculous, but it's like at the same time they've forgotten that like you don't make a dime.
No,
a dime. You add no value in the grand scheme of things. Just as is. You do add value.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like, I'm around a lot of great people that don't forget that, that have that front
100%.
center. And those are the best leaders. And then you've encounter some people every once in a while.
Yeah.
They have completely forgotten about what the big picture is, why they are where they are, what the company actually does, what the value the company provides is. They have no idea.
They have no idea. And it's sad, but it's true. And we're always going to have that. And I think that companies need to do a better job onboarding people. This week I was just talking to a young lady I use the word savage a lot. I picked that up along the way and it works though, but she's a recruiter who is a recruiter in the mix. She just said early on, and I remember advocating for her at one time for the company that she was with. She just wanted to get in the field. Mm-hmm. She said, I cannot, in good conscience, tell these guys and these ladies that I'm hiring how great we are if we're not great.
Yeah.
And she said, I'll never forget a company asking me, I need 80 people by such and such. She goes, but what they were forgetting is they had just lost 160 to turnover. Mm-hmm. And when your back channels are on fire and your executive staff looks like a revolving door, I've said this always, you got to start to look at going, maybe we're not the best.
Yeah.
Maybe we do need help. And maybe we need to do a line in the sand and just look in the mirror. And I think that takes for every man, woman, and child at some point when you've got issues in your life. And I used to help people with addiction problems. I used to help counsel people. And one of the things that I'll never forget sitting in a jail one time with a bunch of guys and we were ministering to them. And the minister said, you guys are here for a bunch of different reasons. And this one little redheaded kid sitting next to me, he goes, I'm here because my cousin's a snitch. I'm here because my cousin, I could just feel like that warm water feeling all over you. I'm like, no, you're not. You're here because you sold coke to a cop.
Yeah,
it's like, that's why you're here.
Uh-huh.
It's just like, I'm here because my cousin's a snitch. No, that's not why you're here. And we have to, like, why are we having all these rollovers in the field? We'll get in the field. Why are we having this? Why are we having all these problems? Why are we having the turn? First of all, the first place you need to start as a leader is go, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? And do I need help to find that out? And what about my staff? How long has it been? I'm going to challenge you with this. How long has it been? Have you asked your staff members how you doing? When's the last time you asked your daughter, your wife, your husband? I'll never forget. I got on this kick of telling that to my clients. My daughter's 14. And I said, babe, picked her up from something. We're in a car eating Chick-fil-A. It's late at night sitting in a Target parking lot. I said, hey, honey, I love you. I love you too, Dad. How am I doing? You would be shocked what your 14-year-old daughter has to say about how you're really messing things up for her. And you know what? Not all of it was right.
Uh-huh.
But dude, in that moment, I needed to eat crow. And if I want to continue with this young lady and I want to see those grandkids and I want to be a legacy in her life, I got to own that stuff. And I got to look at her and go, babe, I love you. I'm so sorry I did that. Now help me to be better. Well, why aren't you doing that with your staff as a leader? Why aren't you doing that with the staff as a leader? I do this all the time with Anita. Hey, how am I doing? Am I not? What am I missing? You got to have those trusted people. And if you don't have a Spartan-esque inner circle where you're linking shields with your 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, man, you're missing out on a great opportunity there, man.
Well, I'll be the first one to say I lose sight of this all the time. It is so easy, especially even just the past few years. I've just had my head buried in the sand with the financial pressure. It's been
sure, I can't imagine.
It's been it's just been like I've been in like a survival state, and I thought I was more present than I really was. But now that I've gotten out of it, I realized like, oh no, I was so wrapped up in it, and it is about other people, but to everybody, it's me being really selfish because it's only me being consumed with me, and it's not, but I completely understand how it's perceived, and it is, and it is, and so I've realized I've lost sight of this over the past few years, and I'm still trying to unwind a lot of this, and make amends with a lot of this stuff. And so I'll be the first to say it's easier said than done, and it has to be a constant reminder. And your organization grows and changes and requires all these different things of you, and so it does become harder to do a lot of this stuff. And I feel like you have to continue coming back to that intentionality. I do need to. Hey, I haven't been out in a while. I do need to go out and see what the heck's going on. I mean, Europe was really good because it allowed me to detach in many ways. I needed it. And I realized, we're people think of us as a media company. We're not really a media company anymore. We're more software than anything else. And into the future, we're a software company, which has required things in my gears to be shifted in my brain first and foremost. But I realized like, man, I'm not involved. I'm not nearly as involved in the software as I should be. Like, what am I doing? I'm leading this organization. I can sit here and just say, oh, I don't understand it, because I don't understand it. But whose responsibility is my understanding of what we do? And I was looking in the mirror. I was like, damn. It's that guy. It's this guy's fault right here. My fault. Get on the phone with Randy next day. Hey, I am so disconnected right now. I've got to start figuring some things out, and I'm still trying to get it figured out. But
those conversations and those watershed moments, I think, are a lot bigger than what we realize when we have those self-realizations. And and I just want to touch on you saying, I don't know everything. Well, as a leader, that's the beautiful thing. It's because then that causes you to rely on other people. It causes you to feed and engage with other people because you don't, as a leader, you don't know. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about there, Bob.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, I didn't have some, 40, 50-year career in the mining industry, right? I spent some time in the non-for-profit space. I've been in blue-collar places all over. For those of you who know what hod carrying is, I have hod carrying. I've carried hod. I've done that, mixed mortar. I did a lot of different things. But what I found is when I went to a losing team, and one of the things that I got known for was being a fireman. So if everything is falling apart and we're getting ready to get kicked off the site, I got sent in to fix something. And what I found out was that we had this guy we called Grandpa. He'd been in gold. He'd been in coal. What am I going to tell him about how to mine?
Yeah.
But if I can sit there and encourage and engage with him, and I can sit there and lead in such a way that I can lean on his expertise and have him, there would be days I'd be like, hey, map this out for me like you would your grandkid. You got grandkids, don't you, Grandpa? And he's like, yeah, I do. I said, well, tell me what you're doing there so I can get my brain wrapped around that. Teach me. And I think there's a real powerful thing to that when someone's already looking up to you and they realize that you're kind of dad in that situation because you're a leader. But then you go, you teach me. You teach me. Explain this to me and map this out for me. That's another step of engagement. Like I didn't know what was going on, or I didn't always know the answer. But what I figured out was I could fix any problem mine site that we had.
Yeah.
Just on the way that I engaged and led and empowered my people. And another thing too is like when you feel like you've done wrong or you've got a losing team, yelling at them makes zero sense. I remember standing in front of 75 guys with hot seat equipment, and I'm like, I'm not going to yell at any of you. Y'all already know we're losing, but we're not going to keep losing. We're going to win because we're going to do this together. And I talk about this all the time. People are probably sick of hearing it, but Anita and I were part of a non-for-profit for a long time, and we were over kids camp. Well, she and I did not live that life growing up. Mm-hmm. My kids camp in the summer I was in the woods all summer. That was my kids camp.
Yeah.
And so, if we went to Kings Island during the summer, I was like in my mind, I'm the coolest kid ever. Right. We went to Kings Island. And so, so we had to create camp, and we had these games, and we had all these kids. We had like 200 kids. And one of the guys came up to me and said, we have team games today, and I need a rope big enough to fit 200 people on. I was like, oh, geez. I didn't ask. I asked around. I got it. What I found out later, it was for tug of war. So I show up. Aaron, you've got 200 kids plus adults on a tug of war rope. This is nothing but bad. Uh-huh. All that's cranking in my mind is like, insurance, parents calling, and they do the first one, and the team on my left, they just literally get drugged through the mud. And one kid got up, he had braces on, and he literally had grass and mud in his braces. And I'm thinking, we are going to get sued. Well, they do it again, and of course they do the best of three, right? And this team on the right just keeps winning and winning and winning. And I just all of a sudden, man, call it God, call it whatever, I just decided we're going to do it one more time. And the losing team was like, no, it's hot. They're covered in mud. No one wants to do it. Like, yeah, we're doing it again. So we got everybody up. We got everybody on the ropes. And they said, go. And I took off running, and I went to the head of the losing team. And dude, I pulled with everything that I had within me. I was screaming. Come on, we've got this. Rah! And the reaction was so violent. I could not believe, we picked up the other team off the ground. Their feet left the ground. We had yanked on that rope so hard, and their nervous system wasn't smart enough to go, I just let go. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
They held on, and we drug that whole team holding on to the rope, the weight of almost 100 people on one side of the rope, and we drug them through the mud holding onto that rope. Well, they thought that was a freak thing. No way. So the ones who won, they were bloodthirsty. Let's do it again. And we won every single time. But this is, Aaron, this is what I did not tell anybody. And so everyone who's listening, you will now find out that I'm the biggest liar ever. The next
were you juicing?
No.
Performance enhancing drugs?
Yeah. Yes, I was. I was on performance enhancing drugs. Everyone can tell by my massive hulk. But I didn't pull the next 4 times. I just screamed and yelled and encouraged my team.
Yeah.
I acted like I was pulling, but I never did. And we won every single time. And everyone was like, oh, it's because Mike was there. I'm like, take one look at me.
Yeah.
I'm not some huge dude. That's not it at all what happened. I encouraged, that's all I did, dude, was encourage a losing team, and we won every time. And that's been my template for our business. That's been the template for every time I ever walked into an MSHA violation conference and knocked SNSs out of conference. Every time I've ever done anything, is I just remember that moment. And that was a life-changing moment for me. And I went from striving to be a guy who was always kind of in your face to understanding that if I love you and I scoop you up in your darkest moments and brush you off and just say, hey, we got this, there's a big, big, big change that can happen there in someone's life.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's how you get to some of the crustiest guys out there too. The real.
Yeah. The OGs, the guys that have been there forever. You know what I mean? They've got like the scar and the limp and everything.
Yeah. They've been around the block, man.
Oh, yeah. And they're highly opinionated and aggressive about everything, and everything we're doing is wrong.
Yeah. Or they just don't ever say anything. There's a few different
I've
versions
seen that guy.
of it.
You're right. He says
they just say nothing. Yeah. You can't get a peep out of them.
You don't smile. You know, it's like this.
Yeah.
This kid
had a mustache since before my parents
were
born.
13. He had a mustache, dude. Yeah, that guy eats raw pig metal for breakfast every morning. Yeah.
But yeah, even those guys, I feel like I have an interview with AARP for something, and it was supposed to happen. We've been trying to reschedule it, and they sent me the questions, which I don't typically look at the questions before this stuff. I'm like, you can ask me whatever you want. I'll give you whatever answer I have.
Right.
Maybe that's the wrong approach. Maybe I should prepare so I can answer better. But one of the questions was, the whole thing I think is about like the struggle between different generations. Because I'm younger, I'm leading an organization, I'm interacting with the older generation.
Right.
So naturally, I'd be a good fit for the discussion. But I've struggled with how to answer it because I've never struggled with the older guys, especially because all you have to do is just be genuinely curious. Yeah, like that is the antidote to any of those guys. Just genuine curiosity in what they do, who they are.
Yeah, pay homage and
no
be respectful.
Problem. Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah,
which is where I've talked about this some recently, but I feel like that's where my age and small stature have actually been an asset.
Oh, very much. So I could not agree with that more.
I'm so under the radar. My ego's over here. Tell me about what you're doing. Like, what are you doing? How'd you get here?
Struggle growing up because I was very, very confident in myself physically.
Yeah, which can work against you.
It did.
It works for you in some ways, but also I didn't even realize, like, wow, that can really work against you too.
It did, 100%, because I came into it going, you won't dominate me. And I don't really care what your experience is. We can take this outside, win or lose. You're going to get all of me you want and more. And dude, I had to be humbled in life in such a way that was no longer an option to where I could see clearly and lead on a higher level. And so I had to be humbled, and it was a hard thing. And I'm so glad it happened. I'm so glad that I realized that, man, that just does not work. It creates more enemies. And your small stature, being able to come in and be inquisitive and joyful, I always found that you were so disarming.
Yeah.
You know, the first time I met you, I remember I tried to avoid you like the plague. I don't know if I ever told you that in the very beginning, because
most people do.
I didn't want to self-market. Like, I didn't want to be a part of all that. And where we were, the mention was brought, this is going to happen. Aaron's going to be out there or whatever. And I remember telling our president at the time, like, no, I'm not doing it, dude. I'm there to look at drilling. I'm there to look at my guys. And I was jaded and hurt coming from the industry I was at, and I didn't want to do it. And then I talked to you one time, and all of a sudden I've got a microphone on me, and I'm like, how the hell did this happen?
Yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah, that's how I do it. It just happens.
Yeah. I was like, how did this happen?
Yeah, and I haven't even realized that until recently. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I'm just so nondescript. No one even thinks twice about it. It's like, that's how I do it. That makes perfect sense. But I remember when we talked to you, the whole time I was thinking, I was like, this guy knows how to talk, which is rare on sites like that. A lot of people don't know how to talk.
Yeah.
You just, I don't even think I had to ask you a question.
No, you didn't ask me.
We just let you talk. And I like, you just, talk for 10 minutes. I'm like, We got it.
Yeah,
Cool.
you
And
said,
then you
"Who
became
are
a
you?"
spokesperson for the company.
Yeah, he goes, "Who are you?" That's what you said. "Who are you? Why don't I know you?" Yeah. Well, I had a leader one time tell me, and we were standing by a car hood, and I was just on my ear, and Perry, and I hope you hear this, dude. I love you so much, man. I owe you so much. But he drew a line. He goes, if this is how far I've went on the hood, he said, if this is how I went, and the line was about, I don't know, 7 inches long or so. If this is my journey in life. And he says, and I help you get this far. And then he drew a huge line across it, further than he ever went. He goes, I've done my job as a leader in your life. And he goes, and if I've ever held you up so high that no one can see me, I've done my job as a leader in your life. And so for leaders watching this, man, just mull that over. Just consider it. With every guy, even the guy you can't stand, even the guy who's always breaking stuff, even the guy that when he walks on the site, you're like, oh my God, it's Terry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Think about like, hey, if I can help this guy, I've really done something and I've learned something. And the clients that have caused me to grow were the ones that did not want to be with me. But the boss said they had to. And then in 6 months, they're ending the phone with, Mike, I love you.
Yeah.
But man, at first I'd be telling Anita, I don't think I can work with this guy. I don't think I'm turning it around with this guy. I mean, then all of a sudden he ends a phone call one day he goes, hey, I just want you to know I love you. And man, that's what one day, Terry's going to look at you, dude, that guy, and go, hey man, I just want you to know, thanks for being patient with me back then. And thanks for getting me where I am right now. And I think that's the mastery of this entire conversation. Just invest.
Well, it's also a lot of fun. I've learned too. Like something's clicked with me, maybe past 6 months to a year. I think one of the big frustrations is people come into these organizations and everybody expects everybody to be an adult. Seriously,
They're sadly disappointed with me.
Yeah, but it's like it's a joke, but not like they
Right.
expect them to be the picture of what an adult is.
Right.
They're on time. They speak in an orderly manner. They do their job. They don't swear at people. They
Right.
look presentable. Like
Yeah,
the
good luck.
the core. Yeah.
Right.
But most everybody has not learned any of this.
No,
And so that's what I've started to learn. Like, whoa.
they don't know.
Their parents probably didn't teach them the basics. I went through school, didn't get the basics there. Their previous employer, probably not.
Right.
Probably not. And
Yeah,
so
there's a good chance that they taught me some really bad things that I'm bringing to the next organization I work for.
Well, and so best case scenario, yeah, they have learned a lot. And I am being silly, but I'm not. It's like I can, in our business, it's just like writing and communication.
Yeah.
I've just realized the writing communication is most of the time terrible. And I can sit here and be like, well, these are adults. They should know how to write. They've never learned how to write.
No.
And so, oh my gosh, I need to teach them how to write.
Yeah.
Because
With grace.
no one's ever taught them. Yes. Yeah. And not say since I'm such a good writer, we're going to have a writing workshop because you suck.
Because I'm unblemished in every way.
It's not that. And I am a great writer, but no, that's
I'm filled with Jesus here. So here we go.
That's not the approach, but want to help them with their writing, because if they can communicate their thoughts and ideas better, they will be so much more effective in every aspect of their life, not just at work, but with their spouse, with their children, at the church, whatever it is. Communication is the foundation of everybody's lives. And so if I can help them even become a more effective communicator, or shake someone's hand better, introduce themselves better, have a conversation better, these simple things that you want people to know. It's not my job as an employer to teach someone the basics, but I've realized, wait a minute, it is oh my gosh. In a lot of ways, that is exactly what our job is.
Whatever those basics are.
Whatever those basics are. Exactly. And they're different for every organization, every team, every position, every individual. Every individual needs to learn different things.
Yeah. Well, people used to say when I was growing up, leave that stuff at home. Home stays home, work stays at work. But that's such a linear thought, because what we don't understand, and what we understand now, is that the human psyche does not work that way. There's always going to be things going on. Now imagine this. You got a guy in a haul truck and he's going down switchbacks that might take him an hour to get to the bottom and maybe an hour and a half loaded coming out. That's a deep pit.
That's a deep pit.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
And then just think about that. He is so preoccupied with what's going on at home.
His wife just asked for divorce last week.
Yeah.
You think he's thinking about the rock truck he's in?
Right. And you can go through the motions with just about any action you can do. How many times have you ever got home and you didn't even know how you got there? You're like, wow. Or got to work and you're like, man, I hope it didn't run a red light because I was just kind of cashing it in because your body is so used to doing these things. And so when we put our people in those harm's way, why wouldn't you think you need to engage with them to make sure that they're mentally okay? Because what they're doing is dangerous. And if you've ever seen, I've seen some companies to prove how much a haul truck can hurt someone. They'll run it over a van that they don't need anymore.
I love those videos.
I love those videos. I love being there for it.
I just want to watch an hour-long compilation of those videos.
I want to be the guy smashing something at some point, though.
Yeah.
And so, they just roll right over the top of it. And when you talk to the drivers, a lot of times, like in a 777, they're going, I didn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? I didn't feel it.
Yeah. And a 777 is a small truck. You get to the bigger ones, they just go right over it.
Right over it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't feel it.
Well, at a pit that we've both been to, someone died. They were in a light vehicle, backed into a loader, backed into him.
Yeah.
Pinned him in the truck. Dead.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part is like, I get emotional because I love people and I love the blue collar people because I feel like in a lot of ways, my dad's blue collar. We always raised blue collar. I was blue collar my whole life. And you guys don't get the credit. You should be proud of who you are. Don't ever hang your head in shame. Don't ever hang your head. The closest I ever got to a fight was I was working for Turner. We're in San Jose. I'll never forget this as long as I live. Keaton's in front of me. And he's wearing boots, and a vest. We're in a sandwich shop. We just came off the site. I'm just off the site.
Yeah.
And I remember this guy looking over at his son, and he goes, Dad, don't ever be him.
It's crazy.
And he's pointing right at Keaton. And I'm thinking, I got so mad. And I probably did something I shouldn't have done. I walked over to the guy and I had a few words with him and let him know he needed to leave. And I told him and his son, you just don't say anything. And I was in a different place back then. And they walked out. And Keaton never knew that happened. But I went to bat for him in that moment because I thought, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in who you are, guys. You're out there providing for your family. You're working your butts off. And we need to do a better job. Execs need to do a better job. And you guys need to do a better job on taking your mental health seriously and what you're doing seriously. Because you might drive that dozer every day, but that we forget sometimes and we lose familiarity with the fact that it will kill you quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that lesson so many times. I'm almost been ran over. A haul truck cut loose one time and I was going up a haul road. It's left-hand drive, but the ridge was left to the left of me. I had nowhere to go. So it was coming down. It was the middle of the winter. He put the brakes on. The whole thing locked up and cut loose. And I just remember the last thing saying to myself, don't let it hurt. I wish I said something noble, Aaron, God, protect my family.
Yeah, you should have rehearsed that. Yeah.
Right? I said, don't let it hurt. And I just remember just opening my eyes and going, oh, I'm still alive. The whole side of the truck's all scraped up. So what we do, what you guys do, I have just massive amounts of respect. And I stand in awe of it so many times because you guys just keep showing up. So keep showing up, but show up for you too.
To that note, what's I've been thinking about, I was thinking about, I feel like a run the other day. There was a post about a coal miner that went to some kid's basketball game.
Oh, yes.
And he just had, shit all over
yeah.
him. And it was really polarizing in the blue collar world, which was quite interesting. So it was used as a very positive thing, and that is very positive.
It is very positive.
It's like West Virginia or something. So he's probably underground coal mine, and looks like a coal miner.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the blue collar guys were not appreciative of it because he's like, you look like shit. And hey, I've been in that position. You've at least got some time to like wipe your face off, like go to the bathroom and like put some water on yourself because that also is not a great representation of us.
Right.
And I thought that was quite interesting. Because I think
The two views are very polarizing, though. There's no balance. In
No,
those
no,
views,
yeah,
right?
but
they're both
but it's
on
like
either side.
where's the middle? But I think there's merit to both sides. But
Yeah.
merit to you go to European job sites,
Yeah.
they look good.
There's a different decorum there all the way.
But
yeah.
they everything looks good, and
Mhm.
it's not the everywhere, but most
Mhm.
places there's a like perception is reality. Everybody looks like they should be there.
Mhm.
They are well kept. They're working hard just like anybody else, but they look better. They look better.
Yeah.
And that's why like pilots wear the pilot outfit.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that way you know who he is. I mean, that's a really good one too.
But it makes me feel more confident.
Yeah, he rolls in there in flip-flops. So I'm going to be like, hey, whoa.
Yeah, flip-flops and board shorts.
Yeah,
you're going to be a little nervous. Yeah, what is this? Who's this guy? But he, not the nice uniform. You're like, okay, yeah, professional guy. And like he's probably hungover and you know whatever it is. Like he's probably just a fucking disaster. He was at the bars last night, but he's looking good. So he's going to fly this plane. Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
And
he belches and he smells like a brewery.
Yeah. But I think there is some of there's an opportunity also for I think the blue collar world in the indie industry.
Right.
And I'm saying this as some asshole in the stands.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, but there is some opportunity to like ask, how are we presenting ourselves? Like, are we playing to the stereotypes, or are we saying no? Yeah, we work hard, but we look presentable. We can look like professionals, and work hard and get dirty a lot of days. Like, is there a middle ground there? And I've thought a lot about that because I think that is an important part of, like, instead of just sitting here being victims of the perception that's cast upon us by society, is there anything we can do? When I say we, the dirt world, to adjust that perception ourselves and to influence that perception ourselves? Maybe the answer is no, but I do think there's an opportunity.
I think that's a very it's a lofty conversation, I think, in a lot of ways because of what we're trying to do out there. But having a brother in Europe and been into Europe myself, I didn't know I had a brother till I was like almost 40. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought my mom was dying. She brought all the kids together. So my sister's coming down from Indy. My other one's coming up from Lexington. She wants us all to gather. And I'm like, oh my God, my mom's got cancer. She's dying. And so we sat in the room. She's just bawling on the couch. She's just crying and she's trying to tell us something. And she had a son when she was younger and very young age. And so she was actually taken care of by someone else in the family. And she thought we were all just going to walk out at that point. And I'm like, sweet, when do I get to meet this guy? And we were all that way. And my mom couldn't believe it. But the thing is that when he came here, there was no stipulation to him like what I did. Like he almost didn't even ask. Like that's the first thing that we ask. What do you do? Hey, how you doing? What do you do?
Yeah.
He didn't ask. And for a long time. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, Holger, what do you do? And he was like, oh, I do this. And I said, I do that. And there was no like, where he's from, there's no stipulation between what you do. It's just what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's what you do.
Well, the Germans, they're very direct.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
just so matter of fact. Black and white. Yeah. Yeah.
German was my first language. And so, yeah, they're very pragmatic. And so for him, there was just like zero judgment there. And here it's so different. It's what do you do? And I'll never forget picking my daughter up from ballet. And I still had my vest on. And I had raced from northern, and that day I had been on the Ohio River working. And by the end of the day, I was in northern Indiana. So if you know your map, that's a good distance. Mm-hmm. And so I'm racing down to pick her up from ballet because I used to tell her, I want to be a real dad. You know, I never got to take my kids to drop them off to soccer or pick them up or anything. I'm like, I want to have that experience. I want to pick my kid up. So I'm racing down and I walked in and I'll never forget just people, the way they looked at me and the way they did not want to talk to me. And of course, I grow my beard for several reasons. One, because my family have kind of done that. The region where I'm from, that's kind of who we are. But I also do it just to almost because I have an enormous IQ. I have an IQ higher than of Einstein's being tested. I am a very political person. I'm highly, I'm educated. I can hold with a lot of other people, but I look blue collar, and I chose blue collar for a reason. And, standing in there with the beard, standing in there with the shaved head, standing in there with the vest, 0 people talked to me. But you know who ran and jumped in my arms when she saw me there? Was my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that we have to have that balance. So you talk about, do we need to have a decorum? I don't know if we do. I don't know. There's part of me that loves the guy who shows up and he's got tattoos all over him, I love to have the conversation with the guy that I'm thinking, oh, that guy looks like a psycho. And the next thing you know, he's a genius,
Yeah.
What are you doing here? I met a guy one time, he worked the stock exchange for years. And then all of a sudden he decided he was going to be a mechanic for CAT. He's like, this sucks. This is a soulless, evil place. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And he became a great mechanic for CAT and then became a PSR for him and then went on to do other things. And so I don't know. But I see the balance, what you're saying with that guy. He could have washed his face, but you don't know how bone tired.
No,
that dude was.
That example, I don't know any of the background.
Right.
I just thought it was an interesting conversation.
Right.
A really interesting conversation because I would have thought it was all positive. Blue collar, like, yeah, hell yeah, this is just a working man. But it wasn't from the blue collar guys, which I thought was quite fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that what we need to do, especially as leaders, is look at our guys, the guys like that. We had a guy we called Pigpen, and fall in love with them in a way that you do for your team and realizing who they are as individuals. And I think that we a lot of us have fallen in love with the industry, but we forgot to fall in love with what makes the industry important. The heartbeat of it. Dude, if you're a haul truck driver and you're watching this today, they can't do it without you, by the way. Drillers, come on.
You can't outdig the drills.
You can't.
No.
You got to have them, right? We all have to have each other. And I think the more that we have that perspective and understanding, I think the more grace we have for one another. And I don't think that's fluff because I've seen it. I've been around 1%er bikers. And if you've ever been around them, I've actually done a funeral for 1%er bikers where a fight broke out during it. One of my buddies said, get your ass against the wall. I didn't question it because I didn't want to get stabbed.
Yeah.
My wife and kids needed to be escorted because they knew the guy who passed. They had to be, we had to make sure that they weren't followed on the way home because certain people that I can't mention showed up to that funeral. And what I learned was every one of those guys was a hurting child. And every one of those guys had a heart. And I'll never forget one of them coming up after the funeral and say, there's literally nothing that I won't do for you. And he meant that, dude. And what I realized is the only reason why I said that is because I loved him. I did the funeral for free. I refused to wanted to pay me. I knew this guy. And man, there's such a deeper thing for us. There's so much deeper than just moving dirt. It's so much deeper than civil construction. It's so deeper than demolition. It's so deeper than the equipment. It's human lives. It's the most beautiful element of this entire thing. And I hate the coldness of this autonomous generation where we're feeling as though that you guys are just units to measure success by. You're beautiful. You're awesome. You have greatness within you. And you have this awesome opportunity to realize that and stop getting shit on and stand up for yourself and move forward and do something great for your family in the blue collar world. And the more that we do that and the more that we stand up for each other, the better this place gets, dude.
Well, on that note, I'm going to go pee real quick.
Yeah.
Because
your teeth are floating.
I want to keep focusing here, but yeah, I feel like that's a good time to on this kind of stuff too. Now you've got me thinking, just I'm reminiscing about the good old days.
Yeah.
I'm not very old, so it's like 5 years ago. But I remember this was like year one of business. So it was still just me.
Yeah.
Some outside help, but just me and I go out to Cupertino because that was like the most exciting place I had access to. Thanks to Keaton. That's still one of the coolest operations
still a beautiful place.
I've ever been
I've
to.
D9 up top at night seeing San Jose.
It's incredible.
They let me in the D9.
Yeah.
Dude, I want one more than I want a Harley.
Yeah. Absolutely. They're substantially more expensive than Harleys too.
Yeah, just by a little.
Yeah. But I went out there and my girlfriend had broken up with me like a week before. So I was just a fucking mess. But and it wasn't the relationship that got me. It was just a bunch of other stuff that I needed to deal with. But real bad anxiety. I just couldn't focus, couldn't do anything. And it was 24 hours a day out there.
Absolutely.
And so
6 days a week.
Yeah. But roll out there in the afternoon, hang out with end of day shift, roll into night shift. And I thought that was the coolest the coolest time of day to be out there when it's just black. Because it's just there's just nothing else. It's you just see the little lights of,
you're on top of the world.
Yeah. It was really, really calm. And I remember talking to Travis, who was out there.
Yeah. I love that guy, dude. If you don't want to know what Travis is thinking, you can't be around Travis.
Man, but he's
gonna let you know.
Forget what he said, but it was something along the lines like, hey, you'll work it out, you'll figure it out. Kind of, but had like a nice conversation with me.
Right.
And Travis, he's like just like a bulldog,
dude, I love that
just
guy.
getting after it. But he took the time to have this little conversation with me because he knew I was struggling with stuff.
Yeah.
And that was all that was necessary. Like, it wasn't all that profound, that deep, anything of the sort. But all that said to me was, wow, this guy actually really cares about me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but he actually cares about me. And sometimes that's all it takes. Like, you just need
Doesn't
that
have to
little.
be huge.
No, it does not have to be anything grandiose. It just has to be this little nugget.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, I that was like one of the more memorable conversations I've had on a mine site. To date.
Which is crazy because
us just hanging out.
Yeah. I'll never forget sitting with a guy who had a professional career in sports ahead of him and got injured. And I just remember two of us sitting there on top of that mountain and he started crying. And I just remember crying with him. Dude, just like, because I was thinking, I've never been, that guy who, professional football teams was looking at, right? That's never been me. And I couldn't imagine, when you think that that's solid, that's what's going to happen. Yeah. And then a debilitating injury. And to see this guy move forward, it was just amazing. I think that's and aesthetically, it's one of the most beautiful sites that I'd ever been to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
By a mile.
And you talk about when the sun is setting.
Yeah.
Then especially if it's been a hot day and that breeze kicks, it's so sweet up there.
Maybe it's just a sight.
I don't know.
Maybe
dude,
it's a sight. Yeah.
I love that place.
Yeah.
I loved it. I learned so much there. And also learned how deadly the Santa Ana winds are when they come in 70 miles an hour, down
well, it's pretty far up there too. Yeah. It's a ways up there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what, I guess what's on the horizon for you?
So I've always been, the P.T. Barnum guy. And so there's just limitless thoughts in my head. And I think what's next for us is just doing good work. Just doing good work. We've talked about scaling. We've talked about this. We've talked about that. But, doing good work and keeping that focus driven and not trying to stray off and do something else. And I think that's the temptation that once you start doing okay and you feel like that all of a sudden a lot of leaders go off on a tangent. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they'll just go do, okay, well, now I'm going to play basketball. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Like some guy that takes pictures goes and tries to make software.
Well, that's different. That was
like
a strategic, this asshole.
Yeah.
But, I think there's that temptation, but you're still focusing on doing good work. You know what I mean? And so for us, that's what we're trying to do is just trying to do good work. We're trying to innovate. We want to get before the right people. We know influence is currency in our business. Mm-hmm. But also just being genuine because I hate selling myself and I know I got to do it. I know I got to be vocal. I know I got to stay out there. I know I got to stay valid. And that's a hard thing for us. And so we're trying not to be flashy. Even our book's not flashy. Mm-hmm. It's our logo and we kept it small and we didn't go through an editor because we didn't want them to say, okay, now you got to add 4 chapters of fluff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not doing
We need more childhood stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. So that's us, man. Just doing good work, loving on people, and just trying to be good at what we do and be genuine. Just be real. I just want to be real with folks, and that's just where we're at.
Awesome. Well, if people want to see your stuff when you do put your stuff up, I typically see it on LinkedIn.
Yes. So that's where I think that we get most of the views,
Yeah.
is LinkedIn. You can check me out. It's Mikel Bowman, Mikelno. Blame my parents. They spelled it funky.
Yeah, they really did you dirty on that one.
I don't even look when someone goes, Mikel.
Yeah.
I'm like, here.
Yeah.
But they really did you dirty. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that I'm so inconsistent with, but it's called Legacy Quest. We have a podcast that I haven't touched for over a year. So, LinkedIn is where it's at right now. It's just, because when you're in the weeds of trying to do good work, you just don't have the opportunity to do a lot of that stuff. But if you DM me, I'm going to get back with you.
Yeah, you don't have to be everywhere. I think that's
right. It's a myth.
A big myth.
Just do good work.
I'm everywhere, but by design, I feel like there's a strategy to it.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn, I tell people if I was to get rid of everything but one thing, LinkedIn, that is a weapon. It's wild.
It is.
Yeah.
100%. I've got people calling me from Instagram. And I killed my Instagram at one point, completely just slaughtered it. I can't remember how many followers I had, but I had several thousand followers on it. And I was like, not doing this anymore. It's shallow.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
And I nixed it. And I have Instagram right now. And I couldn't even tell you what it is because it's just that important to me.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we were able to catch up a little bit.
I've missed you. Yeah, dude, to say that we haven't been in the same room together for for 5 years.
Pretty wild.
It's pretty wild, especially there in the beginning when we talked a lot.
Yeah.
There for a while, man, especially when you were growing. And to see where you guys have come to is just on the outside looking in. And I know there's been hardships and just, oh my gosh, you've had to just have one watershed moment after another. But at the outside looking in, it's like you guys just seem like you're flying. And it's awesome because of what it's for. You know what I mean?
I think that's
there's a
part
purpose
of what carries us. Yeah, there is a purpose.
You have a purpose.
Yeah. And
this isn't about Cancun. This isn't about you're playing golf with the big guy. I
mean, do I want to play in one day? Absolutely I do. Yeah. But that'll be one day. Yeah, that'll be down the road. I don't know when that'll be. But
I want a D9 first. I want a D9 first.
I want a D9 too.
Oh my gosh, that thing is awesome.
Yeah. It's fun too since I've basically shared my life on the internet for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
I get that a lot now because people have followed along.
Yeah.
For 7 years, 6 years, 5 years. So they've been along the journey with me. And it's a weird thing to say, wow, I've seen you come so far. It's like, how? What? I've never met you. I've never talked to you.
Oh, no, for real. Yeah.
My whole life's on the internet. Oh, that's how you. Oh, yeah.
Flying into Salt Lake City, Utah. I have to use the bathroom so bad at that time. And the bathrooms were closed. So you had to actually go out and then come back through security because the wing of the bathrooms, all of them were down.
Wow.
And I'm literally getting on a plane or off a plane on a plane. That's the layover.
Yeah.
And I got to go.
Been there.
So I'm running to this other side of here, Mikel Bowman. And it was so bizarre to see some dude I've never met. I don't know who you are. And he's running over to me. And he's wanting to give me a sticker to wear on my hard hat or something. Or no, he was wanting a sticker from me. That's what it was. And he was like, oh, I follow you online. And then my wife and I are sitting at a stoplight one day. And a guy pulls up, a young man, and he has a big jacked up pickup truck with a trailer of zero turn mowers on the back. And he goes, bro. And I thought he was being an a-hole in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, chill out. But he was trying to get around to talk to me. And finally we're at this stoplight. He goes, bro, I follow you online. It's so weird. It's like the most bizarre. I'm like, oh, it's startling.
Yeah, I feel like Ricky Bobby. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I don't know what to do with this information. What do I do?
Yeah. What do I do? Just keep your hands down. So you just keep coming out.
Awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by, and hopefully we see you soon.
Thank you very much I've been just pumped. I was so excited about coming in. I've really wanted to see the office, but we've been busy. And so thank you. It's been an honor, especially the hollowed walls here, and the conversations that's been happening. I know you're like, nah, yeah. Anyway,
I appreciate
We're
it.
humbled and we thank you.